Dear audience, welcome to this special moment. To make this a special moment more special, we have our special guest. And in this period, in this time, we are going to discuss on the environmental issue. For that, we have Dr. Kasde Stopler. He is a Consul General in Netherlands from Nepal. Let me welcome him. Sir, welcome.
Thank you.
First of all, a humble request.
Yes.
I would like to request you to introduce yourself to the audience.
Okay. Well, as you mentioned, I'm the Consul General of Nepal to the Netherlands. And in that position, I've done some work, of course, for the country. Brought in airlines like Transavia, Marginair and Arkefly. I tried my best to get attention from the software industry to this country. There are 3 Dutch companies working here. There is another company called Biocomp that is fertilizers on a natural way. I'm involved. And of course, we have built the Summit Hotel. We are sitting here in the premises of the Summit Hotel.
Summit Hotel, right.
Yes, and as a young biology student in 1970, it was my first time to Nepal. I was young, 23 years old. Kathmandu was quite different. There were no cars, holy cows and bicycles. And when we went from Kathmandu center to Patan center, you took a bike and you went through the rice fields. How different it is now. And what I especially liked in those days were the tiger-striped ambassador taxis. And now we are again busy with tigers, so what else can we do?
Himalayan Tiger Foundation.
Yes, Himalayan Tiger Foundation. It's not a taxi, by the way, this is just a real tiger. And I started this trekking company, Summit Trekking, in 1974 with some Sherpas, and then in 78 we could acquire a plot of land here in Kupandol, and we started building the Summit Hotel.
So you have invested a lot in business sector as well in Nepal?
Yes, with a sort of ideal also to get people, you know, in our hotel, they had to be trained properly, we were good for them, we paid the proper pensions and salaries, and we always looked for the quality of the thing.
Can you please share something on, can you please highlight something on your experience doing business in Nepal? First of all, let's focus on the business part.
The business part has always been very interesting, as the Brits say. There were hurdles, but we always were able, with our excellent staff, to overcome the hurdles. And the most interesting thing, in fact, was the whole building process, because from a tourist, I changed into the position of an entrepreneur. And although I'm a biologist myself, and some of my partners were a surgeon, a lawyer, we did know nothing about hotel business. But you know, when you follow your own instinct in doing the things you like, then we have built this place with a lot of wood carving and a lot of local elements in it.
Right.
And we created an atmosphere, an ambiance here in this garden where people came and liked it. So that is the result and the success also of the Summit Hotel over the years.
Tell us something about this visit of yours.
Well, now we have sold the hotel last year. So then I thought, what next? And as I'm a biologist, I want to go back to nature a bit. And my visit now, our visit, I must say, is meant to start a new thing. It's called the Himalayan Tiger Foundation.
You are the chairman of Himalayan Tiger Foundation.
Yes, I am. Yes, and there is a Dutch board, there's a Dutch institution. We have a website, it's still in Dutch. We are going to translate it soon. And our aim at the moment is to, in the first place, tomorrow morning, we are starting a series of lectures in Kathmandu University about conservation biology and wildlife genetics. And it will be done by my good friends, and they will be in the show later. Professor Van Alphen and Dr. Bertol. They will explain that. But the main aim of the Himalayan Tiger Foundation is to strengthen the scientific base for conservation in this country. Because there are many NGOs working, and they do excellent work. But what is missing, according to what we know, is the scientific base for better conservation. A sort of policy based on science. And
so how Himalaya Foundation is working on, just you said that scientific base, you just mentioned about the scientific base.
Yes.
In what way Himalaya Foundation is working? And in top of that, tell us something about the Himalayan Tiger Foundation, the organization itself.
Well, the organization consists of biologists, Dutch biologists. They have all had their experience in life, and so we got the group together in Holland and we said we want to do something for Nepal which is different from what is done now. And we bring in the Leiden University and the Amsterdam University, both Dutch, and we work together now with an excellent Nepalese organization called CMDN, that is Center for Molecular Dynamics Nepal, Mr. Bisesh Karmacharya, I want to mention his name, and he is already working on DNA. So what we are trying to do is set up a sort of scheme where DNA is playing an important role in establishing a better knowledge on the tiger population.
Okay.
And also with American universities like Virginia Tech and Idaho, we are working together.
You just said that we have to do something for Nepal. What made you to do something for Nepal in context to this wildlife as well as this biodiversity conservation?
Well, I like the country and I like nature. I love Chitwan, I love Bardia, I love the Chirai, as much as I love the mountains, I must say, because I started here as a trekker, climbing peaks and catching flies. But later I ventured down south and I saw how beautiful your nature is. So then my biology heart started to pump again this fresh blood. I said, well, let's do it. And then we are raising funds at the moment among friends in the Netherlands, also to start a small bio lab, we call it, a sort of field station in the Bardia National Park next to it.
You are working for that?
Yeah, we're working for that, and we are talking with people locally and getting something on its feet soon, I guess. And we pay it all by ourselves.
Can you please share something about the deeds of this foundation?
The deed so far has been that we are here now for the first time. The foundation is only a couple of months old.
Okay.
But it gets a lot of attention already locally and also in Holland. That is where we start. And tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we have a series of lectures at KU. And we are discussing with Professor Panna Thapa and Dr. Upadhyaya, Subodh Upadhyaya. He's also professor at KU, to set up a master's course in conservation biology and wildlife genetics at the KU in cooperation with the Dutch universities. To strengthen the scientific base and to educate a new group of students who know about conservation, say conservation 2.0. You know what I mean? The modern way.
So the love of nature as well as the love of yours towards Nepal made you to establish this Himalaya Tiger Foundation.
Yes.
Maybe like the reflection of yours, the nature lover, as nature lover, the reflection is reflected in this ambience as well.
Well, you have one of the best, most beautiful countries in the world. Let's be sure about that. I don't discuss the political system.
Definitely.
The country I like a hell of a lot. So you need a lot of attention worldwide as well. So what we try to do is also attract a new form of tourism, because I've been in tourism all my life here. And you can call it scientific tourism, that people who come to Nepal not only see the temples and the mountains and ride the elephant, but also
the
do
nature beauty as well.
And understand biodiversity and climate change and so on. That's also one of our aims.
What is the importance of biodiversity? Because we are on the phase of development.
Yeah.
And it is always said that development hampers biodiversity ecosystem.
Well, I think it goes hand in hand.
How?
But I would like to relay this question to my friend, Professor van Alphen, who can
definitely we will be discussing on that as well.
He's the expert, and I'm only the broker and get it going, you know.
Do you think that Nepal has been able to preserve, Nepal has been able to conserve the biodiversity or not?
Of course you can. It's a matter of policy in the first place. And the policy has to be made by the government and the different NGOs, of course. And if they agree on a certain aim, it is not difficult to maintain biodiversity and even to increase it, to improve it, so to say. But then you need special measures to do in the Terai, for instance, in this particular example, where you protect nature, you stop poaching, you know what you're doing in the park, and so on.
You have been working with the policy level as well. Are you satisfied with the laws that Nepal government adopts to preserve or conserve the biodiversity or not?
Yeah,
are you satisfied?
I think I'm satisfied. The only problem is, as you know better than I do, that sometimes the law is the law, but you can also evade the law, and then you have a difficult situation. I won't comment on that further. It is just a matter of, if you want to achieve something, it is possible. That's my experience here.
Can you please share some of the challenges working with Nepal in the sector of environmental conservation?
Yeah, challenges.
What kind of challenges in Nepal do you face or are you facing right now?
The challenge I think you must focus on is getting all the noses in the same direction. Sometimes you see among the NGOs, I don't want to mention it as a conflict of interest, but they are not working together in the most positive way. We are, as an Himalayan Tiger Foundation, we are different, I think. We do it for the country, we don't do it for ourselves in the first place. We have the money privately available. We are not depending on grants. So we don't beg for money, we just raise the money by ourselves. So we are committed to our donors also. And you can see it, we run it a little bit like a business almost. We don't want to earn, but we also don't want to spoil money.
Can you please go in depth about the scientific measures you are going to adopt for the conservation of biodiversity, for the conservation of tigers?
We are talking about tigers, and the tiger, of course, is a symbol for what we do. But we do more than tigers. We do only plants, trees, small animals. The biodiversity doesn't exist only of tigers. It is the whole system, the ecological system, which is important for us. So if we get somebody in our research lab who wants to know everything about a certain plant, he's welcome to come. Or small rodents, or whatever. So we want to cover the whole thing, total, and make a sort of data set over the years to see how it changes.
Can you please highlight the role of the community, the role of the donor agencies, the international level, as well as the government in the conservation of biodiversity? Who plays the major role, community or the government?
I think they both play an important role. The community cannot go without the government, and the government cannot do anything without the support of the community. And we want to, again, I repeat myself, I know we want to establish a sort of scientific base to create a situation that you can make better decisions, how to handle a park, how to manage a park, and so on. It has nothing to do with politics. This is nothing to do with local community. Of course, you need the support, but you want to broaden your mind in order to get it better here.
So in the first phase, you are planning to work with the Bardia National Park?
Yes. Yeah. We have friends there. They allow us to probably build a sort of setup, and we want to start soon in getting something going. And maybe the next phase will be Chitwan as well. We are not sure yet.
Okay.
Yeah. We keep it small in the beginning, test the waters, and then go.
I guess we have to wrap up this talk program, and we will be back with our few more guests, and they are Dr. Jacques van Alphen, Professor Dr. Jacques van Alphen, and Dr. Laura Bertola.
And they are both of Leiden and Amsterdam University. They are good friends of mine, and we brought them out here just to help make this whole venture a success as a scientist.
Thank you so much once again.
Thank you very much.
The audience will be right back. Keep watching Himalaya Television. Once again, welcome dear audience. We are discussing on the environmental issue, and in this moment we have our guest Professor Dr. Jacques van Alphen and Dr. Laura Bertola. Let me welcome them. Welcome sir, welcome ma'am.
Thank you.
First of all, sir, I would like to request you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, I'm a professor in ecology in the Netherlands, currently at the University of Amsterdam, and I've worked all my career doing research on either to make environmentally friendly agriculture or on conservation issues. And in fact, I'm now 65 and retiring from my job, but not willing to retire in the sense that I like to continue to work. And so we found it a very welcome opportunity to join the Tiger Foundation, and come here.
What about you, ma'am?
My field is conservation genetics, so using the field of genetics to contribute to conservation. The focus of my project is on large carnivores, on lions, in fact. So now
lions, tigers.
I'm also shifting attention towards the tiger.
Tigers as well.
Yes.
Is this your first visit?
Yes, it is.
What about you, sir?
Also, yes.
How do you feel about Nepal?
I find it a very, very nice country. The people are very kind, and you're welcomed everywhere. You really feel welcome. I find your culture very impressive, and the natural assets that you have.
You went to
the
Bardea
mountains.
National Park, right?
Yes.
So how do you feel?
I think it's a wonderful place. We spent 2 days there with a very knowledgeable local guide, and we saw lots of things. And they also they made me think of how to proceed with conservation in Nepal, because first it was a rather abstract sort of thing. We're going to do that, but you have to know the real problems on the place. And Bardea is a place that was not a nature reserve in the 70s. Then it became first a nature reserve, and then in the 80s it became a park. And so what is happening to the park is that it's now in a transition. The vegetation is changing, the number of animals are changing, and now we want to know how to really manage the system. So maybe you have to steer somewhere, and so then you have to know about how, for instance, elephants and deer are affecting the vegetation, and how fires are affecting the vegetation, because those are all instruments that you can
So
use.
can you please highlight some on the role of biodiversity, the role of the ecosystem?
The role of biodiversity, there are many roles of biodiversity. There's a biological role of biodiversity, which is that ecosystems, which are very rich in species, they are more stable, they are buffered more against changes like climate change. So by having a very complicated ecosystem in place, that's also an insurance for the future. There is also, your country has a legacy with the tiger,
Right.
which plays a very important role also in your culture, and you don't want future generations to say tigers, what are tigers? So there is also this aspect that nature and biodiversity is part of your culture necessarily. And biodiversity is very important because it attracts lots of tourists, and for that reason it contributes to your economy. And then finally, a place like Bardea, with a forest with over 600 species of tree, may be a trove of medicines that we don't know yet. We have to go there and to do research on the chemical identity of these trees, and then maybe you can be rich. At this moment already, the trees in Bardea play an important role in local medicine, but that's not on a pharmaceutical basis, I would say. It's in your own tradition of using these plants. But I think that the wisdom of the local people in using these plants, which is based on an experience of many generations, should be spread. And in that way also, biodiversity is in fact an economic asset.
Dr. Laura, you have been working with the large carnivores, right?
Yes.
With the lions, now with the tigers.
Yes.
Can you please highlight some on the importance of tigers in the conservation of biodiversity? What is the importance of tigers?
The reason I like working on large carnivores is that they are very suitable model species, because they, as being on the top of the food chain, they are kind of vulnerable. If something in the ecosystem shifts, you often see it at the top of the food chain the first. Also, they need a big range. So if you're dealing with problems like habitat fragmentation, that is a very big problem, mainly for the large carnivores. So therefore, I always find it a very, very good model species to work on, and then from there, the data you find there, you can translate it also to other species.
Stress something on this conservation genetics, right? You have been
Yes.
working for that, conservation genetics.
Yes.
What is that? Can you please say something on that?
It's using genetic techniques, using data from the DNA to gain insights into diversity of the system, or diversity within a particular species, structure within the population, all these things that can contribute to making a more effective conservation strategy. So it's really using the data from the DNA and translate it how those data can contribute to conservation in the field.
How it is measured?
Well, it really depends on the question you want to answer. So you can collect, for instance, if you're interested in the tiger, you try to collect DNA samples from the tiger, which can be blood samples, but can also be non-invasive samples like fecal samples. Then you extract the DNA, and by studying the DNA, you can get an insight into the diversity. So you can compare different populations of tigers, but you can even zoom in and identify individual tigers. So this is, for instance, an example you can use to count, to get an insight how many tigers there are in a specific system.
How can it contribute in conservation?
Well, I think it's very important that you know what you have in terms of not only numbers but also the diversity, because it's very important for populations that they have a reasonable level of genetic diversity, because you want to avoid problems like inbreeding, which is a real threat in small and fragmented populations. So by looking at these genetic data, you can assess the risk of the level of it, and you can also get insight into connectivity between populations. For instance, you can say maybe we need to connect these populations by creating corridors, or by maybe even translocating individuals, and thereby you can assure that your populations stay healthy on a genetic level.
The same question to Jack as well. How can it contribute? How can this conservation genetics contribute in the conservation of, let's say, the biodiversity?
Well, in many ways, it's maybe a bit repetitive. Laura said already that small populations, they are vulnerable. For mechanisms I cannot explain now, if you have a small population, the genetic variation is eroding. And so by monitoring the genetic variation, we know when the tigers come into a danger zone, and then we can try to remediate it, which is, so that's very important. The other thing which is very important is that even if something goes wrong and a tiger is poached, then we want to punish the man that did that. And it's possible to collect evidence from the materials, even when it has been transformed into pills. We can still, if we know the individual tigers here, we can say, yes, that comes from that tiger, so it comes from sheet one, and that helps to find the poacher. So in that sense, it's also very important.
What else? What kind of scientific measures you are using?
In this case, it's the same. Once, she explained that once you have, for instance, based on the on the feces that the tigers produced, you can identify the individuals, and then you can store those data, and then you can see later, you can compare these data with what you find in the trade in China, for instance.
What an individual, or let's say a layman, have to understand about this ecology to protect?
Community ecology is as the word says already, it's the study of the relations between animals and plants that live at the same place, which need each other. The tiger needs the deer needs the vegetation, and then but the number of deer is determined by those that are eaten by tigers, but also those that fall to illness and die for that reason, or maybe by hunger in the dry season. And so what you want to know is how all these interactions are between all the members of a community, and to see which are the important ones. And that's again important at the moment that you want, as a manager, to manage your park. You say, well, maybe we got too many elephants now, we should do something.
So in this handout, this is prepared by you. What do we need to know about ecology to manage biodiversity biodiversity, community ecology as well as spatial ecology.
Spatial ecology.
How do you analyze this? What do we have to understand on this?
Well, this is, first of all, you have to know the number of species that are occur in one place. So you have to measure the biodiversity. All the plants, all the insects, all the mammals, all the birds, and everything else. And you don't. And what you want to know also is which one is common and which one is rare. So something about their numbers, and then you can start to. If you look over time, then you can see if there are changes occurring in the system. Maybe because of climate change, maybe because of interference by man, but also maybe because they did it in the past and it's now turning back to nature. And then as a scientist you have to judge whether the changes are good or not. And then in the spatial ecology what you do is you say, well, we have a plot of forest here and another plot of forest there. Is there a relation between them? Are the animals moving? How do seeds of trees get from the forest, from one forest to the other? Or maybe they can't do it anymore, because that's a problem also. Now that the world is slowly changed into more areas where we do agriculture, and we are cutting away the forest, we make islands of forests, and it gets very difficult for organisms to move between one place and the
to
other.
another.
So that's the emphasis of the spatial ecology.
Ma'am, it is coined that development is the major factor for environmental degradation, or let's say the biodiversity loss. How do you analyze that? How
I
should
think
the environmental preservation as well as the development activities move parallel?
Well, I think both things can go hand in hand, and they should go hand in hand. As we said before, having a healthy and stable ecosystem is very important, also for the local communities. So that's in their own interest as well, that they help to protect it. And I think it's very important that we make sure that they adopt our goals and recognize the enormous value of all the different species that contribute to this stability in this ecosystem, because in a way they also really depend on it.
Do you have to share something? Do you have to add something on this question?
Yeah, I would say that it's always seen as a conflict. So you have nature conservancy and you have development in humans. But I think the only way you can have good nature management and good nature conservation is by getting the people that live in the same place. They are also members of the biological community.
Right.
And you can do a lot with nature without demolishing it. So I would be very pleased if, for instance, the local people from the communities that surround the forests have access to the forest to harvest the herbal remedies that they need. In that way, the forest for them also is important, and so then they will share the idea that it's valuable to preserve it.
Okay.
I think it really comes down to sustainability. So as long as you have sustainable use, you can use it.
Use it. Definitely. Thank you so much, Dr. Jack, as well as Dr. Laura.
It was a pleasure.
Now
Thank
we
you.
have to wrap up our show. Dear audience, thanks to you as well. Please do stay with us. Keep watching Himalaya Television. Namaste.